Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Josh.
Hello, Scott.
Josh, my friend, this is a big old thing that I'm going to try and pick apart without too many mistakes already made, one not to where we keep going. So this is written up by IGN. There's a class action lawsuit being filed against Sony over the PS5's DualSense. Comes from Kimmerly Schwartz, Kreiner and Donaldson Smith LLP. Great name, rolls off the tongue. On behalf of a dude called Lamarck Turner, who has been experiencing a whole bunch of DualSense controller drift. Now, if you don't know what controller drift is, obviously we do, because we've experienced it with the Switch already. It's a whole thing where, if you're playing a game and, you push the analog stick to the right to move the character to the right, you let go of the stick and the character keeps moving to the right because for whatever reason, something in the controller is still telling the game to receive that input. It was a whole thing on the Nintendo Switch, which I'll get back to because that still isn't resolved 4 years later. And now it seems like drift issues are becoming more prevalent on the DualSense, which is why this Kimmerly's bunch of people have stepped in. So they, they're trying to float the case on behalf of Lamarck Turner, but they also cite various other consumer complaints by using social media posts. And they also say that if Lamarck was aware of this beforehand, he wouldn't have purchased the PS5, or he would have paid substantially less for it. And they say that Sony are more than aware of the issue. They're aware of it through online consumer complaints made by consumers directly to them, and through their own pre-release testing. But the only solution that they have is a massive waiting list, which apparently has resulted in this insane backlog. And apparently it says consumers are having to deal with a maze of pre-recorded phone prompts before finally speaking to an agent concerning repairs for DualSense controller drift. You could totally chime in at some point, but
no.
stuff.
Keep going.
So there's this big old waiting list thing, and so because of that, apparently they tag on that they think the whole process means that Sony are being fraudulent, deceptive, unlawful, and unfair. And they clearly don't. They also say that Sony clearly haven't demonstrated that they have a proper fix for the issue because it's gone on for so long at this point. And they say rather it appears that Sony performed some sort of minor refurbishment and send the DualSense controller back to consumers still defective and susceptible to manifestation of the drift defect in the future. So yeah, it's the same thing as what happened with the Switch, and it's worth throwing in here that Kimmerly Schwartz, Kreiner and Donaldson Smith LLP also raised the Switch drift issue back in 2017, 2018, trying to get that off the ground, which is also Nintendo's side of things has escalated to the European Commission stepping in and saying that they'll also take coordinated action to investigate further. That's a 2-minute 40-second take, Josh Brown. What do you think?
I've got a lot of thoughts, Scott Taylor, because on the one hand, I think it absolutely sucks if Sony is kind of sending out these DualSense controllers knowing there is an issue with them and their only kind of solution is, well, we can send them back, we can refurbish them, we can send them back out, we can fix them or whatever. And I think when you're spending so much money on a new product, especially one with the scarcity of the PlayStation 5, you expect it to work, you expect the products to be of high quality, you expect everything to be working as intended. And while I haven't had any personal issues with the DualSense myself, I did have a lot of issues with PlayStation 4 controllers. I mean, when the first wave of PlayStation 4 controllers came out, the DualShock 4, I remember the sticks, the rubber on the sticks being incredibly degradable. They would just break so many times. And even when that was fixed, I bought so many controllers because I kept getting a dead zone in them. And I was just this sucks. This is, at least 3 controllers died because there was a dead zone in the analog stick. And it's that shouldn't happen. These are expensive bits of kit, the DualSense in particular. It's very expensive to have to get a replacement. And while yes, there are services up and running where you can obviously cash in on your warranty, you can send it back. Like this lawsuit kind of says, there's a heavy waiting list, and often that will defer people to not want to do that because who knows when they're going to get through, who knows who has the time to be on the phones, try to get in the queue or whatever. And it is a real issue. I don't know anything about lawsuits themselves or the technicalities of this one in particular, but I think brass tacks, if you're kind of selling a product, you don't want to mislead people, and you don't want to sell something that, has a known issue if that is the case.
No. Well, the thing on the Nintendo side as well is that if what you're, if in the DualSense case, if what you're getting back is just, they say, some minor refurbishment that still doesn't fix the issue, then you just have to go back into the system of okay, wait in the queue for ages, okay, I've still got a broken DualSense, try and get it all sent off again. But on the Switch side, I remember the Joy-Con fix just being, it was a piece of solder that was in the wrong place or a piece of solder that was missing. So it seemed like there was, it was like a a factory fault, which had affected tens of thousands, whatever it was, hundreds of thousands of Joy-Cons. And there are to this day YouTube videos of people just saying, look, this is how you take apart a Joy-Con, open it up. This is the two little diodes that you need to connect, and that's the problem. Although this is a piece of material that's in the way of the signal, and that's why this is happening. So there's a few different, sort of home remedies for this kind of stuff. But something like a DualSense, it is this bigger, heftier piece of kit. It seems harder. Hardly anybody's going to be comfortable opening it up anyway. I certainly wouldn't be.
Yeah.
And in terms of PS5 problems, I didn't experience very much during the review process, but I have had it die 3 times now, where I just go to play it, pick up the DualSense, and I realize that the standby light isn't on and the console's just dead, and I have to go back in and hold the power button and try and get it to come back on, and it's like unresponsive for a while. So I'm like, well, this is fun. And I also, I kind of think, well, maybe it's just a knock-on effect of like 2020 and just not everything's going to be pristine, but at some point you paid the money, it should work.
Well, that's it. You're paying a lot of money for these machines, and again, while I haven't had any issues with the DualSense itself, I've similarly had a lot of minor issues with the actual, console. Like you said, it's crashed way more than my PS4 ever did, even my launch PS4. And there were issues at launch where the front USB wasn't charging the controllers. Like a lot of small issues that, in and of itself, don't make me want a refund, but all add up to a kind of leaving a sour taste in your mouth, especially when, like I said, it's been so hard to get them. There aren't like loads of games, and the machine you get, it's almost like you don't have full confidence in it, because if these little issues are happening now, it's like, well, did they ship too soon? What's going on?
Plus, I mean, like it is. We've said this so many times before that the earliest adopters of games or consoles always get the worst version of something anyway.
Yeah.
But usually with hardware, it's not too bad. Like most of the time, you can count. Off the top of my head, like obviously there's the 360 Red Ring stuff, which when Microsoft finally said we're recalling all the broken 360s, they would just supply you with a cardboard box, you put the console in, and they swap it out. I know on Nintendo's side, they were like, hey, just send it across and we'll fix it. Like I said, the actual fix was very simple, something that they should have got right in the first place. Sony are yet to respond to this. IGN have passed all this stuff across, or asked Sony for comment on it, and I guess we'll see whether or not it blows up or not. But I guess that whole idea of drift becoming a bigger thing, because when it happened with the Switch, everybody was trying to diagnose it and just say, well, the amount of signals that are in a living room or in a bedroom right now, the amount of different Bluetooth things that are going back and forward, or different signal frequencies that are in a given person's room right now, is this going to become a bigger issue? Like, I don't know if you I experienced a ton of Joy-Con drift. I haven't had any DualSense drift, but when you get it, it sucks. Like, if it costs you a life in a game because your character runs off the side of a platform, like, it immediately sucks.
Like, I got my Switch a little bit later, so I didn't get an effective one. Like, I didn't have drift on my Joy-Cons, but like I said, the only closest analogy is the problems and issues I had with the DualSense. And it ruins games. Like, you can't play them properly. It's it seems like such a minor thing, but it has a huge impact on how you experience these games and how you can play them. Like, in terms of drift or a dead zone or whatever, like if you're playing online multiplayer, you might as well be playing with like half a controller, you know what I mean? Because a spoon, you can't trust one side of the controller to work as intended, which means you lose firefights, you can't compete with other people and stuff, and it's like that stuff is incredibly frustrating.
It reminds me of every time a controller runs out of battery mid-firefight and the controller just goes, well, we're going to assume that you still want to run right and just everything that you were previously doing. I hate that.
Completely different topic, not about the lawsuit at all, but that's happened to me twice during Neo 2 boss fights, right, where I've been on the cusp of a victory and the controller's died, and it's my fault for not having a charge, but the wire's so small. This is now just nitpicking everything about the PlayStation 5, but you know what? It's got me killed.
Well, is it your fault though? Because okay, we could have charged it. We don't know when it's going to die. Maybe you notice the little flashing icon when you hit the home page button thing. But why doesn't every game universally pause the game when the thing runs out of battery? If it's offline or it's single player, pause the game. I hate when, like you said, when I'm in a boss fight or a race or platforming or whatever, and it just doesn't do anything. It's just, hey, the controller's dead. I'm like, well, I can't do anything about that here, can I? Just pause and let me recover. But yes, let us know what you think down in the comments below. Have you experienced DualSense controller drift, and what do you think about the overall idea of drift in regards to the Switch, and hopefully getting it fixed going forward? For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
And we'll catch you next time.
Bye.